You already know what it is. You already know what it is. It's your boy B, the outlier. We right back about you with another video. It's a whole nother week. I haven't seen you guys since Friday. And on Friday, we had a pretty good live. It was a live where the chat took over the live. The chat took over the live. But there's nothing wrong with that. Those tend to be some of my most watched videos. Those videos are also the videos that I have the most fun in when the chat gets involved. So again, I love my chat, man. There'll be times in the real world when I'm about to enter into a new situation. And I'll be like, damn, yo, I wish I had the chat. Because with the chat, you're never alone. So what up, man? How was y'all weekends? How was y'all weekends? My weekend was straight. It was good. Went away for like a day or two. I'll tell you guys about that a little later. I went to Hartford, Connecticut. Hartford, Connecticut. I told you cats that we traveling around the whole East Coast, my people. Traveling around the whole East Coast. So I'll tell y'all my initial impressions on Hartford. We'll also speak about the fragrance of the week, which is one of my first niche fragrances. This was one of my first huge purchases when it comes to fragrances, and that is Amouge. Amouge, and the fragrance is called Reflections. Reflections from Amouge, and we'll speak about that. You dig? We'll also finally try to get to the Charles Lindbergh, and this is going to be something that goes into American history. And we're going to look at American history from two different standards, man. Two different standards. One as being a Black American, and then the other as just being an American. And we're going to look at how these two outlooks can frame the way that you see American history. Right? But first, before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to USA Baseball. Shout out. Y'all had me up kinda late last night watching that game. Kinda late watching that game last night between USA and the Dominican Republic. What a great game it was last night. The USA won by a slight margin of 2-1. And if you guys know the lineups for both teams, I'm telling you, man, it was a miracle that it was 2-1. Going into the game, the USA they lost the game. It was 3-1. They lost to Italy. And Italy will be playing today against Venezuela. Italy versus Venezuela to see who's going to go to the WBA, what is it? The World Classic, the World Baseball Classic, the WBC. They're going to play to see who goes into the WBC. Somebody on the check-in, Susan Nephew 980 said, hi, what's going on, Susan? Where you coming in from? Hit that subscribe button, right? Plus hit that like when you step up in here. I'm gonna tell you guys, I do want to have 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Right now we're at 936. So if you can, somebody said it's the morning for me. Shout out to my boy Milka 6106. It's morning for me. Where are you coming in from? Where are you coming in from? Yes, sir. So we at 936. We want to get to that 1,000. So when you come in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, my people. You know, help a brother out. If this is something that you like, if it ain't, just swipe up or swipe left, whatever, however you guys are doing it. But I'm just a brother who walk to work every single day, except for the weekends. I come on, I talk about things in my life, things that I see. If you guys could relate to some of the stuff I'm saying, if you like it, even if you don't, tell me how you're feeling, man. Tell me how you're feeling. So yeah, somebody said, I sub. Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you very much, Susan. Thanks for the subscription. Yes, sir. So yeah, shout out to USA Baseball, man. They did it in a great game. 2-1, it went down to the wire. Went down to the wire, y'all. And it ended on a pitch that looks very suspect, you know, when they have the strike zone on the screen. And then you see the pitch It looked like it was just a little too low. It looked like it was a little low. And the USA won on that. If you watch the game, how do you feel? Somebody said, yay. Susan said, yay. Somebody said, hi, bro. What's going on, my man? Susie Fuel 980. What up, what up, what up? Yeah. So it was a very interesting game, man. Very, very exciting game. But the USA pulled it off. USA pulled it off, my people. USA definitely pulled it off. So shout out to them on, when is it, Thursday? No, today is Monday. So Tuesday night is going to be the final. So y'all check it out, man. Check it out. And we move to the scent of the day. That is Reflections by Amouge. Any of my people on the check-in know about Amouge? Anybody know about Amouge, the house of Amouge? It is a niche fragrance, right? A niche fragrance. And their luxury fragrance house, I love a lot of their scents. These are artist type fragrances. Artist type fragrances, right? Where you basically, damn, the wind is coming in hard. Wind is coming in hard, y'all. I got to bear with me. But yeah, it's a niche fragrance. So a lot of these fragrances, they're gonna be pretty difficult to interpret. So again, if you think you're gonna spray a whole bunch of this stuff on, and they do have a lot of strong fragrances, you think you're just gonna spray a lot of this stuff on and get a whole bunch of likes? Nah, it's most definitely not that type of party. Most definitely not that type of party. Somebody said, what's your name? Susan said, what's my name? My name is the Outlier B. Outlier B. And the B stands for Bradley. That is my government name. I ain't gonna give you the last name, but my first name is Bradley. Bradley. Yes, sir. So, yeah, this Amouge fragrance, I like it, man. It was my first big purchase. I purchased it from a store in the mall. I was walking around in the mall looking for a signature scent, and I came across Reflections because they had it out on the stand. They had it out. They was basically highlighting the fragrance. So I went to the spot, I sprayed it on, and I really fell in love with it. Really fell in love with it, man. I call it my secret weapon. This is something that I'll throw on when I want to impress. This is a fragrance for somebody that basically has some power, somebody that's secure with who they are, somebody who has, you just know who you are. And you want to put this on, and you got a little bit of power to your name, and you want to be impressive to somebody. You throw that out there. You throw it out there, and it will definitely make that. Somebody said, will you remember me when you're famous? Susan said, when I'm famous. Oh, my God, thank you. You pushing me up in the famous status. Thank you. I like that. I like that. But I remember everybody, man. Susan, I remember everybody. I got a little trick to remember people, too. Susan, all I got to do is remember Seinfeld. Y'all watch Seinfeld? Susan was George's wife. I ain't going to tell y'all what happened to her. Y'all can follow that. But George is one of the most funny characters ever created on the screen, man. George is hilarious, you know what I mean? So, Susan, most definitely, I will remember you. Will remember you. Where you from? Where you from, Susan? Yeah. So, all right, let's get into what I did over the weekend. Over the weekend, I went to Hartford, Connecticut, West Hartford to be exact. I'm from New York. So I went up there. It was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful time. But my first impressions on where I was staying in Connecticut is that, man, Connecticut is kind of weird, yo. You could get two different Connecticut's depending on where you're going. So while I was staying in Hartford, Connecticut, let me tell you, and it kind of, I'm not, I don't like to talk about people's hometown, but it's kind of, it was out there, kid. It was out there. When I say it's out there, it's like not one of the most safe places where you really want to be walking by yourself at night. Some of the houses were really big, but at the same time, they were in despair. These houses looked like they needed a lot of work, and they were like kind of old houses. The houses were old, but at the same time, they did have the structure to be, and they were big. So it seemed like they had nice structure. It seemed like it could have been a lot of two-family houses. And if, the houses were kept up, you would see that they could be very, very valuable. Very valuable. You got a lot of land out there, a whole bunch of land, y'all. And Other than the fact that some of the houses were dirty, weren't in, they were in despair. Looked like nobody really worked on some of the houses in a while. It kind of made it look a certain way. And again, you didn't necessarily feel too safe walking around over there. However, I did go down the block a little bit, maybe 15, 20 minutes, 30-minute drive away from where I was staying in West Hartford. And it was gorgeous, my people. Gorgeous, gorgeous, man. I mean, if I was to compare it to places out here in Nassau County, I would say the mutton towns, those rich places, the Roslins. We talking about the Gold Coast up there in North. Right now, I'm in South Long Island. You know, the Freeports, Massapequa. It could be nice out here. Copeg, Amityville, Massapequa, I believe I said, Elmont, those areas. That's where I am now. But to compare the houses that I saw out there in Connecticut to this, it will most definitely be some of those more luxurious areas of Long Island. That's what I would compare it to. But it was nice out there, man. Real nice, yo. Mad space the people had. They had barns out there. It was beautiful, man. Shout out to the people in West Hartford. I also went to like a village square. They had a place where you could get the charcuterie boards. They had, what they have? They had the meats with the cheese and wines. They also had a bunch of wine tours. So shout out to Hartford, Connecticut, man. Had me a great time. I went out to eat at Fleming's, which is a place that sells steaks. The steak was pretty good. Also, the sides they were good. You know, they were good. The drink wasn't that strong, but it was cool. It was cool. But overall, I would say that Hartford is definitely a place I would visit again. It's definitely a place I would visit again. Not a big city, but it has a lot of charm, and it's different, different and unique. I haven't seen too many cities like that, It seemed more like the suburbs as opposed to like a Manhattan or Brooklyn, where you see a whole bunch of people. Philly, where you also saw a bunch of people. Boston, I've seen a lot of people. So I would say that West Hartford is definitely a little bit smaller than that. And it got its own rhythm. Most definitely got its own rhythm. And also in Connecticut, they had just areas where you just felt like you ain't supposed to be there, man. Private roads, the driveways were long, just mansions. You really felt like if the cops seen you over there, especially looking like myself, they would mess with you. They would most definitely mess with you. And this leads into my talk about Charles Lindbergh, my people. Charles Lindbergh. He is kind of big out here in Nassau County, New York, Long Island, basically because he flew the Spirit of St. Louis from Roosevelt Field, which is the mall that I grew up going to. It was literally walking distance from where I lived in Hempstead, over there. He flew from over there. This was big because it was the longest continuous flight by a solo person. A solo person. And he went from New York to France, I believe, from Long Island to France. And he became very, very, very big, Somebody said, my girl Susan said, you will be famous soon, with the thumbs up. Thank you, Susan. I really appreciate you this morning. Really, really, really appreciate you this morning, So yeah, Charles Lindbergh, he flew, like I said, from Long Island. And this was one of the longest continuous flights. And he was a great scientist. He was a very, very, very intelligent man, and a great American hero. But at the same time, he had a troubled life, We're not really going to speak about what happened with him and his wife. I'll leave all of that out of it. There's no need to get into that. But I will speak about his child. And their child got kidnapped. And they found that child dead, man. So that was like something dramatic that happened to Charles Lindbergh, which is crazy. Imagine having a child. I'm not even going to ask you to imagine that, because that's just dirty work. But that's something that, I spoke about, again, with my Charles Benet Ramsey discussion that I had a couple weeks ago. If you guys want to know about that, you could go check what I was talking about, But yeah, back to Charles Lindbergh. Again, very good scientist, very intelligent person for America. He put us on the map in aviation. He was the man. However, at the same time, he had a side to him that America wants to hide. And that side is that he was a Nazi sympathizer. He had some of the same beliefs that Hitler had. And he was on record as a eugenics. He believed in eugenics. And he believed in like the superior race stuff. He didn't want black people and white people mingling. He didn't want us having kids together. He wanted to separate us. Really, really, really wanted to separate black and white. And at the time, that was really the norm. We live in a time after all of that where we can't even imagine that. You know, most people can't imagine that. I went to Baldwin High School, went to Hofstra University, graduated from SUNY Farmingdale out here in New York. And, you know, we don't even look at things like that anymore. When I went to Connecticut, I've seen so many interracial relationships that it's just normal. It's just a normal thing. But back during that time, it wasn't normal for black and white people to live together. And Long Island has a long history of that. Again, I know they also have a Levittown out there in Pennsylvania, but they have a Levittown out here in Long Island also. And this was a town established to keep black people and white people separately. We also have Rockville Center. Is it Rockville Center? No, Malvern. One of those schools out here. It was one of the first schools to become segregated. To desegregate out here in Long Island. And they were showing black people moving into the neighborhood and white flight. And like based off of some of his ideas, of course he didn't establish the towns out here. It definitely influenced the way we see things. So we got some people want to check in. Somebody said, I went to Farmingdale. Shout out, he went to Farmingdale. For you, you can be even with Chinese. He said, for me, I could be even with Chinese. I need you to elaborate on that. But, yeah, you went to Farmingdale? Yeah, I went to Farmingdale too, man. SUNY Farmingdale. I graduated with a degree in computer science, and that was back in the year 2010. 2010, I graduated from SUNY Farmingdale with a bachelor's of science in computer science, man. Did you graduate from there? Somebody said, still have some of the chairs. He said he still got some of the chairs. Shout out, shout out, shout out. I love Farmingdale, man. You know, I went to Farmingdale right after I went to Hofstra. Farmingdale after Hofstra. And while Hofstra it was kind of different in Hofstra, you know what I mean? Because people stayed on campus. You got a lot of people from out of the state. I definitely I went to parties out there in Farmingdale, in Hofstra. But as I got older, again, I was older when I graduated. And I won't partying as much as I used to. I was just really going to Farmingdale to get the grades. You know, I met a few nice, good people who became my friends for the rest of my life at Farmingdale. And I'll tell y'all a funny story about Farmingdale later about my final in computer science and what happened with my final grade that I did. Yeah, but back to Charles Lindbergh, you know. It's a long and nuanced history with black people and this country. So you'll have someone like Charles Lindbergh, who was a great American. He did a lot for this country. He did a lot in aviation. He did all of that stuff, but he was racist. And he felt that black people were inferior to white people. So now you have a situation in America where the only place I know, you know, they put the African American in front of our names, but the only thing I know is America. You can't drop me in Africa and say, go home. Nah, you ask me where my home is New York or my parents' home. And my parents are from the South. My mother's from North Carolina and my father's from Alabama. So my American blood runs straight through me. I'm an American. But we do have in America in the beginning a history of great people who did a lot for this country. However, they did not look too kind upon people who look like me. So how are we supposed to view these people? Because if you had someone who said the same words as Charles Lindbergh in the year 2026 that he said back in the 20s and 30s, that person would get canceled, my people. That person would get canceled. And I believe rightfully so. So, as a black American, how are we to look at some of these heroes, man? Some of these heroes. Somebody said this was back in the 90s. He said it was back in the 90s. It was back, oh, you went back in the 90s? Damn, that's before me. If you went to Farmingdale back in the 90s, wow. Jesus Christ. I believe they were still a 2-year school back then, right? I believe Farmingdale was still a 2-year school. When I went, I think it was their first few years of becoming a 4-year school where you could get, a degree. So what did you get? So he said everyone has a country behind their game except us. Example, China, Chinese. My boy getting into it, associates. Oh, you got associates. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Did you go to get your 4-year? You go to get your 4-year or nah? Because I went to Hofstra for 5 years. I was fooling around. I got kicked out because I was a senior, but my GPA wasn't, I think for a senior, it had to be like a 2 point something. My shit was like a 1.97, yo. I was just bullshitting that Hofstra, man. I don't know what, again, I was messed up. I don't know what I was doing, man. But I left and I got 60 credits transferred from Hofstra to go to Old Westbury. To go to Farmingdale. And then I got sick and had to be out of school for like a year and a half. I went back and graduated, Definitely one of my biggest achievements that I've had, something nobody could take from me, my degree, And Farmingdale definitely was the place for that, man. Somebody said, you got a master's in nursing. Oh, wow, where'd you go? Where'd you go? Did you leave the state or you stayed in the state to get a master's in nursing? That's what's up. That's what's up. You worked in the area, in the New York area as a nurse? Did you? I know a lot of people who, I dated a lot of nurses. And they doing very, very well right now, man. Shout out to the nurses, you did. But I'm up out of here, man. Train about to come. Yeah, somebody dropped some bagels. I'm out of here, man. I love y'all. Peace out, man. Thanks for checking in. Oh, you went there? Oh, okay, NYU. That's what up. NYU. All right, that's what's going on. We got one love, 1329. Went to NYU, went to SUNY Farmingdale. That's what up. Works at NYU, or graduated from NYU. It's a beautiful college too. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. But all right, let me get up out of here. My train about to come. I love y'all. Thanks for checking in. Thanks everybody who subscribed. Thanks everybody who hit that, hit that like button. We'll be up here tomorrow, 4:30 in the morning, every single morning. Yeah.